A student leaving his prep school in the California mountains wrote these words one day. When I graduate, I'll remember many things. The smell of sagebrush on a hot day, the wood fires in the school halls, the warm odor of a well-curried horse. I'll hear once more the stream gurgling near my sleeping bag and the whack of a ball against a bat when it soars out there for a three-bagger. I'll remember sunset from Memorial Hill and Pedra Blanca by moonlight. The sight of horses swimming in the cesspit. A test paper marked 100 and a letter from home in my mailbox. Ojai, Ventura County, California. A small inland valley 12 miles from the Pacific coast. Among its chief products are citrus fruits, apricots, walnuts, almonds, hay, and the boys of the Thacher School.
Born in 1861 in New Haven, Connecticut, Sherman Day Thacher was raised with a love of learning. His father, Thomas, was a Latin professor at Yale University, Sherman's eventual alma mater. In 1887, Sherman journeyed west with his brother George, who had a serious heart condition, in hopes that the fresh California air would improve his health. When George passed away less than 2 years later, Sherman found himself at home in the magnificent Ojai Valley, where his other brother, Edward, had been living for several years. In January of 1888, he purchased 160 acres in the east end of the valley and built a 3-room stone house, which was later to be known as the Casa di Piedra Ranch. 1 year later, a political economy professor at Yale and an old friend of Sherman's asked to send his nephew, Henry Farnham, to Sherman for a year of outdoor life, combined with a study in preparation for college. Sherman agreed, but beyond this first student, he was somewhat reluctant to accept more. By 1891, however, 5 young boys were living and studying with Thacher in the east end of the Ojai. At this time, Thacher published an advertisement that read, "Out-of-door life and study for boys, Casa di Piedra Ranch." The word quickly spread about Mr. Thacher's new school, and soon more than 40 boys had enrolled and several teachers had been hired. Mr. Thacher's qualities as an educator were recognized early. As James G. White, an early parent, wrote, "Mr. Sherman Thacher is a strong, virile man, thoroughly interested in his work with boys. He knows boy nature and how to direct it, to conquer it if necessary. His strong personality, true, honorable, and honest, with the free out-of-door life and with ample book work, develops the manhood in boys. Sherman remained headmaster of the school until just before his death in 1931. Throughout its years, life at Thacher has changed dramatically. What began as a one-room schoolhouse with just a handful of students has transformed into a modern educational institution. Thacher today still holds dear the same values of rugged outdoorsmanship treasured by its founder, and the school remains deeply rooted in its four principles: honor, fairness, kindness, and truth.
Dearest Mother and Father, I woke this morning just as the bells were sounding, meaning I had only a few minutes in which to dress myself in a coat and tie and to walk from the dormitory to the main school building for breakfast. After a quick meal and a check of the blackboard to ensure I had gathered no misconduct marks, I made my way to the corral in which my horse resides. After giving old Sterling his morning allotment of hay, I returned to the dormitory to gather my school supplies. I arrived in the main school building again just in time to reach my seat before our headmaster, Mr. Sherman Thacher, began his reading of Oliver Wendell Holmes's The Chambered Nautilus. It is common in the mornings for one or more of the faculty to read aloud from a book of poetry or prose. After this was finished, classes began. I attended my course on English literature, as well as receiving my daily German instruction. After a short piano lesson, the 10:30 bell rang, signaling the start of morning recess. No sooner had the bells finished ringing than I was out at the baseball fields with the other students and many of the faculty. After 20 minutes of rigorous play, the bells sounded once again, and it was time for recess lunch. Gathered with the other students, we were served graham crackers with fresh milk. After attending mathematics, I sat down for lunch, during which several of my peers made short announcements, mostly regarding upcoming academic and sporting events. After lunch, I attended my Latin and Greek classes with Mr. William Thacher, and then prepared myself for an afternoon of riding horseback. Along with two of my peers, I followed several trails through the dry brush as we made our way up the ridge. Just as we were arriving back on campus, we heard the bell, indicating that we had just 20 minutes to dismount, care for our horses, change to the proper attire, and find ourselves seated at the dinner table. With a certain amount of hurriedness, we arrived just in time for the daily chorus of Domine. We adjourned to the parlor following dinner, where I had a quite rousing discussion of the new play by Oscar Wilde entitled The Importance of Being Earnest. Perhaps when next fall comes, we, the boys of the Thacher School, will put on a production of our own. After dinner, I returned to the dorm for an evening of study and finally began composing this letter to you. I must turn in soon, for tomorrow is Saturday and I plan to take a ride over the ridge with several of my classmates. We will likely spend the night in a campsite of our own making. Overnight camps are rather new here, but the boys and I have quite taken to it. We will ride back into school early on Sunday morning, and likely will ride into town for the morning church service. I hope you are well. Your son.
Hello, Mother and Father. I write today to inform you of the events that have recently taken place here at the Thacher School. As today is Sunday, it is the perfect time to both catch up on my studies and to write to you. I woke early this morning as a companion and myself departed from the barns and rode into town to pick up several supplies for an all-school event that will take place later this evening. It is Shack Sunday, meaning that those boys who are fortunate enough to be in possession of one of those wonderful shacks up on Beetleville Hill will be preparing themselves for a showcase planned by the indoor committee. Food will be served, music will be played, and, I assure you, much merriment will be made. As I am only a smut, meaning a first year, I am assisting a classmate with the preparation of his shack. After returning from our excursion to town, I helped in the drafting of the latest edition of the school newspaper, which begun only a few years ago, which is entitled the Thacher School Notes. After completing my articles, I walked to the rough house, where most of us boys seem to spend much of our time. I will describe the rough house to you, for it is truly unlike any structure I have known before. It is a fairly large house-like building filled with ladders, ropes, and various climbing apparatus, with a floor coated in sawdust. It is quite a spectacular place, and the favorite of many students, though I'm sure the faculty would prefer that we spend our time engaged in our studies instead. I played around with several classmates before I proceeded to rehearsal at the outdoor theater, where we will stage our production of The Taming of the Shrew. We have quite a tradition of Shakespeare performances, and the students are truly fantastic in their renditions of the plays. Even my dear friend Paul enjoys it greatly, and he plays the shrew. Just yesterday was our second Gymkhana event. What was previously a series of games and races has now become a quite exhilarating display of horsemanship. The formality of the event is new, but there remains a sense of friendly competition and collaboration between the teams to make the races as exciting and impressive as possible. Tomorrow we return to classes. For now, though, the focus of the students remains on preparing the shacks for public viewing. Give the whole family my love. Your son.
Dear Mom and Dad, I can't believe it's only been a couple of weeks since I came to school. It's kind of hard to adjust to life here, especially since this is only the second year girls have been admitted to this school, but I'm having a really great time so far. I sometimes forget that I'm no longer here on exchange from Emma Willard, that this is my school now, because it seems that the school is still very much in transition. I think some of the boys were resistant to the idea at first. Many were excited to finally have some female company, but others were upset that their boys' club experience had been ruined. I am making some really great friends, though. We've already settled into kind of a daily ritual. Each morning, I wake up at around 7 o'clock and go to the barns to feed my horse and muck out its stall. I come back to my dorm, Casa de Piedra, or Casa for short, and get ready for the day. After I go to breakfast, classes begin. I'm in Mr. Hyler's English class, and he has just given us his famous assignment. We have to memorize the oath of the young men of Athens and recite it in front of the class. There are so many great teachers here, and I'm learning so much from them. In the afternoon, I ride, but some of the other students play sports. Pretty recently, Thacher started a lacrosse team, one of the first on the West Coast, too. Other than lacrosse, the sports are pretty popular, especially soccer and basketball. After I ride and then clean and feed my horse, I get ready for formal dinner. By the time dinner rolls around, I'm already tired, but the day is hardly over. We still have study hall, which is pretty much our only time to do homework. Us seniors get to go out of the dorms at night. We call it wandering, but mostly nighttime means time to spend in the dorm. By the time I go to bed, I'm exhausted, but every day I go to sleep excited to do it all again. Much love, your daughter.
Hey, Mom and Dad. Just thought I'd send you a quick email to let you know what I've been up to. I can't believe the year is almost over. Every day is busy here at Thacher, and the time goes by so quickly. Every day begins early, at 6:45, when I leave the dorm to go muck my horse's stall. After I feed and clean her, I walk back down to my dorm room to shower and get ready for school. My dorm, Casa, is brand new and my room is huge. I get ready for the day and then head up to breakfast, where I grab a bite to eat from the fruit and yogurt bar before heading up to my first class of the day. I go to physics class, and then English class, and then it's off to drama, where we're rehearsing some episodes of The Twilight Zone that we're going to present to the school. Then, it's time for assembly at the pergola. There's usually an announcement about school-wide events and athletic competitions, and, since Big Gymkhana is coming up soon, the horse department will announce the current standings. After assembly, it's time for math and history, and then I finish the school day with my Chinese class. Just as I'm starting to feel the first wave of exhaustion, it's time to tack up my horse and head out to the field for some Gymkhana practice. However tired I am, though, I love riding, because it's so much fun to be learning something new with my whole class. We practice the usual races and try some of the new ones before heading back to the barns to clean up and feed our horses. Then, it's time for formal dinner. We are seated at a table with people from every class, and it's a great chance to talk to people you wouldn't usually have the chance to see. After dinner comes study hall, when all the freshmen retreat to their rooms. 2 hours quickly passes, and then it's time for socializing from 9:30 to 10. Then we check back into the dorm, and some nights we'll have a dorm activity or even a munch out, where our prefects give us food, and we all catch up on the latest news around campus. By the time lights out rolls around at 10:30, I'm so tired that I fall asleep as soon as I climb into bed. Every day is exhausting, but every day is more fun than the last. Lots of love, your daughter.
John, as a senior, you won't have any more runs down the Gymkhana field, so suppose you say a few words for yourself and your friends of the graduating class.
I'd like to, Mr. Heiler, but I think the ideals of the school are best expressed in a passage which is often read in assemblies, and which we have to memorize for your English class.
Oh, you must mean the oath of the young men of Athens.
I will not disgrace these sacred arms, nor ever desert a comrade in the ranks.
I will guard the temples and the centers of civic life, and uphold the ideals of my country, both alone and in concert with others.
I will at all times obey the magistrates, and observe the laws as well as those at present in force, as those the majority may hereafter enact.
Should anyone seek to subvert these laws or set them aside, him I will oppose either in common with others or alone.
In these ways it shall be my constant aim, not only to preserve the things of worth in my native land, but to make them of still greater worth.
Oath of the young men of Athens.